And welcome again. You are tuned into Vision of Asia, bringing you prime South Asian highlights from all across. Concluding the show, we now have an informative segment raising more dialogues on the political policies that impact many of the growing South Asian immigrant population in the U.S. With the U.S. midterm elections only 2 weeks away, many individuals and organizations have come out in the forefront discussing much on immigration, identity, and respect. In New Jersey, the Inspiring South Asian American Women organization has been empowering more South Asian women voices and involvement, highlighting several prevalent issues concerning many in our community. At Rutgers University, the organization brought together a detailed interactive session on the topic of Immigration 2018, understanding recent policy changes and their effect on South Asian communities. The event discussed separation of children, Muslim ban, H-1, H-4 visas, and much more, while also bringing a platform to discuss South Asian domestic violence survivors seeking asylum in the U.S. Let's take a look at the story.
Hi, my name is Nadia Hussain. I'm here with Inspiring South Asian American Women. One of the big issues that we're seeing impacting South Asian women in our community right now is the issue of revoking H-4 work authorization. So H-4 is a dependent visa. When someone comes to America on H-1, they have a visa to do work. Their spouse often comes on H-4. And before, they weren't able to do any kind of work, but there were a lot of activists that worked very hard to get some work so that people who are on H-4, on this dependent visa, would be able to make some money, contribute to our economy, and this was a great victory. And this was something that definitely impacted a lot of South Asian, Indian, American, Pakistani, Bangladeshi communities.
With a family from Bangladesh. They were in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and it's very similar to what you said. The father he always went to his immigration check-ins, never missed it. He had just gone to a check-in with his wife. He was going on his way to work, and immigration agents posed as, they said, oh, we're from an employment agency, knocked on his door, couldn't find it, but they picked him up on his way to work. He had 3 children. One was a citizen who was 11 years old, one was a DACA recipient, and one was an undocumented minor. And he, again, just picked up within 2 weeks. There was before you'd be held for sometimes months, and now it's kind of all over the place. So he got deported within 2 weeks. His family had no idea where it was. It was very clandestine and very scary. I mean, literally, he was gone. They could barely talk to him. They had no idea where he was. Then he was in Louisiana. Then he was in Colorado. Then he was gone back to Bangladesh. And the child, the 11-year-old, he had already had severe asthma, but had been gone for years. He had been off a nebulizer. He ended up back in the hospital just from not being able to breathe. He wasn't sleeping. He was already kind of underweight. He was not eating. His mother would call me crying, saying, my child's not eating. And then because of that stress, she ended up in the hospital. They actually both ended up in the emergency room. And the family actually ended up leaving for Bangladesh because they were so afraid that the mother would also get detained in a similar fashion.
So today's conversation on immigration opened up people's eyes on the need to be civically engaged. It's incredibly important for every person in the South Asian community and beyond to speak on behalf of all communities to make sure that every single human being is treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve. The immigration laws have been problematic for a very long time, and immigration enforcement in this country has been problematic for a very long time. President Obama, people might know this, deported more people than any other president in the history of our country. And the ACLU filed lawsuits after lawsuits after lawsuits against the Obama administration. But the immigration laws have been fluid and changing and evolving over time. So, when I talk to some community groups, people say, they're okay with legal immigration, but not okay with illegal immigration. They're okay with people that are documented and are here properly, but aren't okay with people that cheat and are undocumented. But my response to them is that, it may feel like there's a right way and a wrong way to get into this country, But really, that has evolved from generation to generation. It wasn't that long ago, and maybe over 100 years ago now, but it wasn't all that long ago in the history of the world where the first immigration law in this country was called the Chinese Exclusion Act. Right? We proactively excluded people from East Asia in order to enter into the United States.
I think one of the most inspirational aspects was just getting involved, hearing people's different stories to see how we all connect in different ways, despite the differences that we have, that somehow there's always a similarity within communities, that together we can make a difference. So I think one of the most inspiring things was that even though all these things are happening, there is something that we can do and we can voice ourselves and make a change. Right now, statistically, the Migration Policy Institute has said that over 71,000 spouses of H-1B visa holders in early 2017 were issued, and now these visas, about 40% at least, are Indians. So now the way that these women are affected when it comes to domestic violence is that not only are they financially abused already most of the time before. So a lot of women who face domestic violence within the South Asian community, you're not only affected in immigration, but also financially. So when the opportunity is taken away for women to even work, now they're constricted to be completely dependent on the abuser.
The issue that I discussed was children in detention centers, and they don't belong in jails. They belong going to school. They shouldn't be scared of deportation. They should be worried about their homework.
And we're very happy to have this panel on immigration policy changes and how those changes affect the South Asian community. I think we learned today that, immigration status in this country, there's a lot of different changes that can sort of negatively impact the South Asian community. I think it's so important to spread the word in the community that indeed this can affect many of us, and that our neighbors, our friends, our families are impacted. So I think the takeaway in talking about this immigration policy changes, the question was asked, what can we do? And I think one of the biggest takeaways is we can have our voices heard, get out there, get active, and most of all, vote on November 6th. Have your voices heard. Make sure that you advocate for a community and advocate for those that can't advocate for themselves. Thank you.